Welcome to Demasked. My name is Fresman, and today I'm joined by Samhears. Sam, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I am getting over a cold, so I'm a little stuffy, but I'm otherwise feeling pretty great.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Now, today's episode's going to be a first. We have our first audience submitted question,
Oh, cool.
direct for you.
Yikes.
Well, so I've been told, and I've been doing some research in the background, and I found that you do artwork in your spare time as well.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, I've been, it's just something I do. It's like breathing and eating for me. It's drawing. I've been drawing since I was a kid. I just never stopped. A lot of people seem like a lot of people drew when they were dabbled at it when they were kids, and I just never really stopped. And now I make a little bit of income from it as well.
Hmm. Well, I saw I believe it was your most recent, not most recent in terms of just came out, but I was looking at your Twitter and you did a profile photo by the style of, was it Mike Mignola?
Yeah, yeah.
Or
Yeah,
for those of the people at home, the artwork of Hellboy, the comics.
yeah, the artist who created, well, who revivified the character of Hellboy. It was originally created by Jack Kirby, I think, and then Mike Mignola did his own spin on it. Um,
Mm.
yeah, after the whole AI art thing, I kind of held off on doing copying other people's art styles for a long time. But after the whole AI art thing started happening, I was like, screw it. Can I swear? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, go for
Okay. Screw it. I'll go lightly right now. I said
it.
screw it. I'll just I love Mike Mignola's art style, and it's a great way for me to learn his design and stuff. And everybody does anime, and people are doing AI, prompting, and so who cares? Just do it. What looks cool, and his stuff looks really cool to me.
Well, I've been so I'm a fan of yours. I'm trying not to geek out. Well, I'm not gonna I'm not terrible when it comes to fanboying, but
Yeah, yeah.
I do love your previous work. I'm not sure how much in depth you'd like to talk about that.
I don't. Yeah, I'll talk. I don't have any. I can't think of anything that I wouldn't want to talk about. I don't mind talking about stuff.
Sure, I just didn't want to accidentally step on any sore spots, that sort of thing.
I'm not very easily offended, so I can't think of anything in particular. I'm pretty easygoing and just like to make weird stuff.
I I immediately had this thought in my head of like, how do you like making music? Followed by, how dare you?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask, um, not specifically about the work with Steam Powered Giraffe, but more of the what did it take to make the character of Hatchworth?
How dare you, sir? No. Um, that was definitely collaborative. We it was a lot of back and forth, and it was just kind of like we were using what we had. We wanted to replace another robot. I was there. I had a mustache and glasses, and I wore a bowler cap. So kind of the visually speaking, it was I was already there essentially. Um, I forget. I think I came up with the name, and then Bunny came up with other aspects of it. I think the coloring, the metal color, and the pipe coming out of the hat was Bunny's idea. And I think I don't know who came up with the hatch, but I either way I ran with it. So it's definitely collaborative, mostly between me and Bunny.
So what were you doing prior to joining Steam Powered Giraffe?
I was well, before I became a robot, I was their drummer, but before that, I was doing my own music in the San Diego area, and I was doing all kinds of different stuff. At that point, directly before joining Steam Powered Giraffe, I was doing a solo act where I would play half of a drum kit with my feet, and I would play an instrument and I would sing. So it was kind of like a little, really melted down three-piece band, one-man band type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Yeah, I had experimented with doing Craigslist bands, hitting up Craigslist asking for musicians, but it always kind of, I'm not a very good leader, so it kind of makes sense. It always made sense that I would end up doing my own thing by myself.
Hmm. So how did the like I if I remember, I've done a little bit of research into the band and whatnot, but where did you sort of meet or encounter Bunny and them?
Yeah, I met David first. We were in, I think, funny in high school. I met David in a weight training class. We were both kind of just kind of geeky, two geeky dudes, and then David joined drama club, and me and my friend Carolina started hanging out with David at David's house, and that's where we hung out with Bunny as well. And yeah, so in high school essentially.
Huh. I Interesting. Well, I was wondering if it was later on because I heard that what's the term that the band was doing a busking at colleges.
Yeah, yeah, they were doing that in when they were going to college. Um, we kind of went our separate ways in the college time. I was not good at college. I didn't do very well. I just ended up kind of working odd jobs and making music and art on my own. And they ended up really taking a liking to um, the performance arts, mimicry, mime work in particular. And then they started busking, doing their
Hmm.
thing. But I didn't do any of that. That was, ooh, it seems like a lot of work, a lot of intense work, and for not a lot either. But I guess it worked out in the end.
Well, it seems like it's a good way to get your name out there, but at the same time, you're sort of putting yourself out in the open air.
Yeah. I personally, I've never been inclined towards doing anything that pleases the audience. It's hard to describe. I definitely love self-expression. Is what I like to create. Obviously, I try to make it as pleasing as possible. But when it comes to like making, usually if you busk, kind of want to steer towards something really pleasing to people or do cover songs. And I've never really been inclined necessarily to doing that. I use cover songs to learn how to make music, but
Hmm.
I've never wanted to kind of regurgitate other people's art in that way. No, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think it's just something I was never really inclined to myself.
So, what would you say your sort of your current iteration of your music? How would you describe it?
Yes. How would I describe it? I I s- 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 yeah, it's hard to describe. They're all each song is a whole is like a little movie in my head. Each song generally has kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they're kind of short stories each one. Um, I don't have like I don't have concept albums necessarily. I kind of string together songs that sort of have a common theme, but really each song is its own thing. I don't really want to make anything. I rock. I guess definitely rock and roll is what I make. I love rocking. I wish I could rock harder, but as I get older, it gets more painful. But yeah, just kind of rock, self-expression. It's hard. It's hard to describe. Definitely song by song basis, I could describe it better. I
Well,
don't know.
in ter-
Yeah, it's a tough one.
well, in terms of your creative endeavors, where do you see yourself in like a year or so from now? Like still making music or sort of expanding out farther?
Um, yeah, definitely still making music. I've there's definitely been a lot of as far as like growing up as a musician and becoming an adult, a lot of like coming to terms with the reality of it, and essentially I don't really care where I end up. I just know that I will be performing and creating still. Um, I know what kind of the boring side is kind of the stuff I don't really care about. So if I'm not touring the world, then I don't care. I'm still going to be playing and performing probably on the internet for people, and working on music videos and doing art commissions and all kinds of stuff. Just little things from that I can get away with doing, because I'm not really a prolific. I don't really have a prolific work ethic, so my projects are usually smaller. So yeah, I just want to keep making albums and songs and art for as long as I can. That's
There you go.
basically it.
So it's all about the money, right? No, I'm.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and the drugs and the sex.
Yep. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Let's say you gotta Keith Richards that you gotta live forever.
Yeah, I mean, living forever would be neat, I suppose, but part of it is definitely maintaining my health, so I'm able to keep performing my songs and to the level that I expect them to be performed at. I don't want to get terrible. If I, decrepitude's going to happen, but I still want to be able to, rock my licks and sing my heart out, for as long as I can.
Fair enough. So how would one achieve a healthy lifestyle or longevity?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's different for every person. For me personally, I and this is completely besides any point. I'm never trying to make a point or anything, but I don't do any drugs. I only do I only drink coffee. Um and then for me, I love eating food in a way to help me maintain sort of my body, as I decided to go vegan about a decade ago. So I kind of limit the amount of crap I put inside of myself. And I mean, it's kind of, it's not really like I made a choice. These are just the ways that I have seen the world and decided for myself. That's what I'm doing. And, my other job right now is walking dogs. So, I'm doing that's my exercise. And, that's what I'm doing. I don't know if it's really a sustainable thing for other people. I know people love, to eat whatever they want and to partake in drugs. I don't think that they shouldn't be allowed to. It's really weird. It's really weird. That's just what I'm doing. It's easy for me to do because I just love making art so much that I don't give a shit about that stuff. So it's never really been a problem.
Well, what made you make the jump to veganism?
Um, There's many different reasons, really, and I like to do things usually for many reasons. There's never really like one reason. Um, One was I had a really good friend, a really smart, really good best friend who was becoming vegan, and it just made sense. As far as, gosh, as what I was eating. I was eating crap,
Mm.
So, and it kind of sort of helped me look at food differently. And then as an extension of that, I look at animals differently. I really like animals. And so why would I want to do anything to, mess with their life? And then the third reason is to upset what little bit I can, upset the way that corporations kind of run the world with their commercials and their fast food and stuff. I don't kind of a long form boycott, I suppose, of how capitalism treats food.
Fair enough.
So there's
I'm,
a lot to it. But that's,
yes,
of course, over 10 years I've found many reasons.
I've personally have been trying to not full vegan, but just sort of cut back
Sure,
on
yeah.
meat intake because I've like my family's got a history of health problems, so I'm
Oh,
trying to
okay,
dodge
sure.
that.
Yeah, same here. That's another kind of no-brainer. Is like, man, I don't want to. I don't want to have a stroke at 50. I don't want to have whatever comes of that stuff.
Or I've been, listen, I once read an article that, people who complain live longer, and I turned to my girlfriend and said, well, by that measure, I'm going to live forever.
Yeah, I probably won't live there. I am not. I don't like complaining. It's kind of been I've just started doing like kind of therapy stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, I just sound like I'm complaining the whole time. I've never been one to want to complain about. I've had a really blessed life, I guess you could say. So, kind of I don't feel like I deserve to complain, but there's always something.
Well, how do I word it? I feel like growing up, I didn't complain enough.
Hmm.
Like, you kind of internalize stuff that you probably should complain about.
Yeah.
And then as I grew up, I'm like, you know what? This is some BS. And
No, that's a good point. Yeah. Standing, I mean, it's part of complaining is kind of being a self advocate, and standing up for yourself at least.
yeah.
So you got to learn to do that at some point.
So what drives you in terms of like creative endeavors, like your music's more specifically? What sort of what's that push that you give yourself?
Yeah, right now I've being kind of loosening the bounds of perfectionism. I'm going back and trying to record old songs
Mm-hmm.
essentially to get them out because it just kind of my head is filled with this stuff and I can't. It feels awful to know like to make more new stuff because I have so many old songs that I just want to get out. It's not even whether they're good or not. I don't want them in my head anymore. So that's a kind of a big weird motivator is just having all this stuff in my head that it's kind of backing me up. And also, I mean, yes, and that makes me excited to work on new stuff and just expressing things I don't see expressed very often as well is another motivator. I don't, is seeing kind of a vacuum. And maybe that's just because popular media is kind of forces certain, trends down your throat. But yeah, just self expression, just kind of filling in kind of artistic gaps that I see,
Well, that
essentially.
well then it seems that the more modern music that's coming out nowadays, they all kind of seem to cover the same topic. You know?
As it has been, like just kind of lovey-dovey stuff. I like kind of un um, uncomfortable topics too.
Mm.
Uncomfortable topics are fun for me. I like to see people squirm. I'm a little bit of a jokester with my relatives and loved ones and close friends. Unfortunately,
Oh
I get the
yeah.
brunt of it. So I like kind of to see people squirm a little bit. But yeah, so there's not enough of that. There is it's out there, but it's kind of just not popular, I suppose.
I I just had this horrifying realization. Like, I think I do the same thing, but with like objects.
Oh, really? In
Yeah.
what way?
So directly in front of me, I'll probably have to incorporate it into the thumbnail or something. But I have a deactivated grenade from World War II,
Oh, wow.
and
That's
I
pretty cool.
and I had the thought of like, yeah, I did scare the crap out of my brother when I bought that thing.
Yeah. That's pretty intense. That's pretty funny.
Well, he's a big Call of Duty kid, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
and so I found it at a thrift store, brought it home, and then I opened the front door. I'm like, hey, guess what? And they just rolled it across the floor at him.
Wow, that's quite a prank. Good thing is deactivated.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I've double checked the thing. It's fully cored out. It's just the shell.
Oh, jeez, Wills. Did he jump on top of it? Need to land on top of it to protect.
Oh no, he dove off the couch.
Yeah, he ducked and covered, huh?
Well, I was joking with him, but like, the next time, the mailman comes by, just stand there, like, hey, do you happen to see a pin anywhere?
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't do. I don't like doing it to strangers. Yeah, it's kind of like an unfortunate thing for my loved ones, to kind of be a joke
That they
man with
they have
them.
to get the brunt of it.
Yeah.
Oh. Now, what is your favorite type of prank to play or thing to do?
I like just wordplay, just kind of twisting. I like leading people to. I can't give you specific. I'm not a person who remembers like specifics of any kind of conversation. I like leading people to think about something in a weird way. I like puns. I suppose is a good example. Um, yeah, just kind of like funny words. It's hard to explain. It's kind of just out of boredom. I don't like normal conversation, no, like small talk. So I'll usually
Yeah.
end up kind of trying to jab something in there.
I say in that case, I think you're on the right show because I try my best to avoid regular interview questions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do interviews a lot, so this is kind of interesting to me.
Well,
Very fascinating.
I am honored. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
I know. Yeah.
Well, like, I, there's always that worry in setting up an interview. I'm like, oh man, what if they don't like me? Oh no.
Oh, well, as long as it's always fun to talk about oneself. I'm not gonna lie. You know, like I like my own music personally. That's kind of why another reason why I make it. That's another to go back to the earlier question of why. It's because I like to hear it personally. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's true for other artists and musicians, but I will listen to my own stuff and be like, "Yeah, good point there, Sam of the past." I don't know. It's kind of maybe narcissistic. I'm not sure, but it's just kind of.
Well, I mean, let's lean into that. What's your favorite song of yours, if you had to pick?
Yeah. It definitely changes. I always like "It Says It's Dead" is one that I really like. It's from my tech technically my first album, and it's the titular song, and it's just a weird head fuck of being aware of dying or being aware that death is coming.
Hmm.
And usually songs that revolve around that. I have another one called "The Blob" that I really like, where god damn, it's so hard to describe. It's just a thought becoming the idea of a thought becoming an actual thing, like making a song and becoming its own thing and being almost set free on the world to wreak
Mm.
havoc or create its own thing. And then I have another one I'm working on called "Propagate," which is just a fun exercise in taking a twisted version of human history and making it into a 3-minute rock song. And then it starts kind of at the beginning of mankind, kind of standing upright, humankind or whatever. And then it goes beyond to when we become, essentially like Time Lords or fourth dimensional beings or something. And then it
Hmm.
becomes almost circumlocutive in its narrative. But it's all just in the. I just like getting all that gunk into 3 minutes of rock. It's just fun for me.
the, the concept of existentialism compressed into 3 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Existentialism, that's a good word for it. I like messing with those ideas, with those uh, infinite, just mind. I like blowing my own mind, I suppose.
There you go.
Self-relating my mind.
Now, I heard from a certain source that you enjoy your video games.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Now, I'm going to ask you the same question, but instead of it being what's your favorite newer game, I want you to tell me what's your all time favorite. It doesn't matter if it's from yesterday or 20 years ago.
Sure. Um, one that kind of comes there's obviously a couple. One of them is a game called Body Harvest from the N64 era, and that is like a semi-open world time traveling sci-fi space marines versus giant bugs game that just kind of like sat with me in an interesting way and was just super fun to think about and play. Just you can jump into it was like early Grand Theft Auto, so you can jump into vehicles, solve kind of puzzles that involved kind of the landscape on how to progress forward, and all the while you're being attacked by giant bugs from outer space as they're trying to feed off the human population around you. And so there's just so much going on that I just I've always been enamored with that game. And I only actually recently beat it a couple years ago. It was very difficult as a kid, and I'm not really inclined to beating games. I'm not like I'm trying to change that because I feel like I should beat games more often. I'll tend to just kind of play 75% of a game and then kind of just drop it. Kind of a weird habit. But I think, yeah, it was really fun to go back and actually beat it, and I would love to play it again. And I'm actually working on remaking the soundtrack, that's on my Bandcamp. I have like 6 tracks out of I don't even know. There's so many tracks on that on a video game soundtrack. Body Harvest comes to mind as one of them.
Hmm. Well, I'm staring at screenshots of it, and it almost seems like it's a precursor to oh, what's that series that's still happening today? EDF, Earth
Yeah,
Defense Force.
yeah. I just recently got into one of those, and it's definitely similar in that it's giant bugs, but also EDF is more kind of arcadey, whereas Body Harvest has a narrative and a lot of kind of there's some twists and turns that kind of are pretty interesting sci-fi things. And I even think about it today. I think about like what actually there's story that's there that's not like written anywhere that I kind of think about stuff almost like uh Ridley Scott's Prometheus. There's some crazy what the origin of man questions that come from that game that are just super fun to think about when I was in middle school or high school whenever I first played it.
Oh God, yeah. Oh man. Well, like with Prometheus, there's that was it, I'm thinking like the first shot of the film with the engineer like melting himself on the
Yeah.
side of the side of the river.
Yeah, in Body Harvest, I think in like the instruction manual it says that humankind was planted by an alien race as to be harvested. That's why the game's called Body Harvest. To be harvested later by an advanced species, essentially, and that's what they come to do, and that's what the game's all about.
Oh,
So it's very similar to Ridley Scott's Prometheus.
say we got to talk to Ridley Scott then and see if that's the origin of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I he's interesting. He's interesting. I'm sure that Body Harvest wasn't the originator of that, but it's just a funny one of those funny sci-fi archetypes. Something that kind of maybe the more religious minded don't. Something that would scare someone that's religious, like, oh, we're just food for some monstrous bug alien species. Something that would just kind of we're not important. We're not the center of the universe. We're just somebody's crops. Somebody's experiment. That's just a fun thing to kind of mess with people's heads.
Or as there's a term I heard a long time ago with the cosmic whoopsie daisy.
Yeah, yeah. That's a lot. That's a good way to explain a lot of stuff. What about you?
Oh,
What's one of your favorites games? I
oh
love talking
jeez.
video games.
I grew up with a weird selection of just kind of games that were handed to me by my parents.
Yeah.
So there's your Tony Hawk's Pro Skater,
Uh
and
huh.
then there's Spider-Man for the PlayStation 1, and then there's
Nice.
and then
Nice.
there's Martian Gothic Unification.
Oh, nice. Weird. That's a strange one.
Have you played that? That's a
I've not.
weird.
I saw
Oh,
someone stream it recently. It looks like a nightmare.
well, I've recently been trying to go back and try out older games that I sort of missed the bus on.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, one of my favorites lately has been System Shock 2.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember I've played that one. Yeah, that one's great. Super scary. I love horror video games, so and that's to me is one of the definitely a standout as far as horror goes. At least it was back then. I'm sure graphically it maybe doesn't hold up so great. I don't know, but when it came out, that was pretty damn intense.
One of my favorite pastimes is if somebody asks what I'm doing, I'll just describe what I'm doing in the game without giving the context that I'm playing a game.
Yeah.
What are you up to today? Well, I beat a monkey to death with a wrench earlier, so that's how that's going.
That's pretty funny. I collected his vital organs so I can figure out how best to fight his kind in the future.
Oh, just stab Dracula. It's fine.
It's funny that you mentioned your brother's a Call of Duty person because I've dabbled with. I mean, I played the early ones on like PlayStation 2 or something back in the
Mm-hmm.
day, but I recently got into the free to play one. In particular, there's a DMZ mode, and I've just been loving it because it kind of reminds me of old school like GoldenEye meets Far Cry or something. It's all mission based, and you're mostly fighting little AI dudes. There are other players, but it's been really fun. It's been kind of almost like a roguelike first person shooter. And I just really was. I've been hooked on it, and I'm not usually into Call of Duty stuff, but it's just whatever for whatever reason, it's been clicking with me.
Well, the I so I've been playing the same thing, and I saw the climbing thing that they added,
Mm-hmm.
where you can like grab ledges and all that, and I'm like, ooh, that's getting
Yeah,
a weird itch.
it's pretty in depth. Yeah, like kind of almost you can be almost parkour with all the systems they've added.
I've been playing it with a buddy of mine, and I've got the worst luck. I will find every room that's full of people with shotguns.
Yeah, I mean I've been playing it solo. I love horror. It's really intense. It feels almost like a horror game because I love sneaking around and trying to kind of flank people and sneak up on people because I'm not really a good shot. So I
Mm.
have to kind of be more sneaky and try to listen for footsteps. It's been really fun.
Speaking of horror, do you have a favorite horror game?
Yes. I have I've tried to play it recently and it doesn't really hit the same way it did the first couple times I played it. But there's a game called Darkwood, an indie kind of Polish made indie game. And that game it was just so incredible. And so one of the things that was really great about the horror that it brought was the whole thing was mysterious all the way up until the end. It wasn't like biological chemicals, corporations. There wasn't a god that whatever. It was all very mysterious all up until the end, and it felt kind of like you were involved in some sort of horrific folklore. And it was just the gameplay was really solid, and I don't like tower defense, but usually I don't like tower defense, but the kind of the game every night in the game as time progresses, every night you have to basically defend your home base. And usually I hate that kind of stuff, but it actually serves a purpose and it ends and yeah, it's just a wonderful horror game.
I I think I'm looking at photos. I think I've heard of it. I haven't tried it, but now I gotta.
I if you like kind of like a slower paced horror game, I can't say it's always slower paced, but it's definitely different and just an interesting take on survival horror, in my opinion, and just really nails this kind of dreamlike folklore quality that I haven't really seen anywhere else. But other than that, I mean, I love Silent Hill, I love Resident Evil. With the remake announced I want to play Resident Evil 4 again.
Oh yeah.
So there's I like the standards as well.
Well, I was skeptical on the RE4 remake
Yeah, for sure.
right up until I saw a GIF of Leon suplex. I'm like, all right, sold.
Yep. It seems like they're trying to do it right, I guess. Unlike Resident Evil 3, which was kind of a disappointment to me because that was one of my favorites back on the PlayStation 1. Yeah, kind of a disappointment. The remake was a disappointment to me personally.
I've been going back through RE2.
That the remake and the original are both super good.
Well, so I did a run through of just the actual game, just did it everything as you're supposed to. And then I went back with like the unlocked weapons
Mm-hmm.
and like the minigun and just
Just slaughtered. Yeah.
just walked my way
More
through.
games need to do that. They need to give you beat the game and then you get a infinite rocket launcher and then you just can cruise through like Mario, like in Mario Odyssey. Mario, you should beat the game. Mario gets a minigun and he can just cruise through the game with the minigun. Maybe that's a little twisted. I don't know.
I just imagine like Bowser like, you can't save the princess, and then Mario just kind of reaches into the back of his overalls.
Yeah. Riddles him full of holes. That'd be super cool.
There was one that I feel like it would be fun to take a survival horror game in which you do not have any weapons, like Outlast,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
and then you give them one gun, just one.
It would be interesting. I don't know. I've only played that one once through, and I feel like it would slightly. I mean, there's other games that are like that. Like there's gosh, what is that called?
Condemned.
Condemned Criminal Origins, which is sort of like Outlast, but with melee and a limited amount of kind of gunplay. And it's really tense, and it even has some really good spooks in it.
Have you ever played the Saw games?
No, I've never played those.
So the weapons in that are bizarre because you do occasionally
bet.
find a gun, but it's durability based instead of bullets.
And the bullets are sewn inside of your stomach or something. I don't know.
Well, like there's a moment where the game kind of falls apart where this guy, he's got a revolver and he's like, "Oh, sorry, only one bullet," and he shoots himself. And then you pick up the gun and it has 6 bullets in it already
Oh, geez.
because
Not really
it's
well thought
durability.
out.
I just
Are those
or
good? Do you recommend those, the Saw games?
they're all right. They're very much a product of their time because they came out right when
Movie
those movies were still
movie
happening.
tie-ins, yeah.
Yeah, and it does fill in some gaps in the lore, but yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
But or was it like Alien Isolation where you do get guns, but they're not really of any use?
Yeah, that was pretty interesting too. I really liked that game. It definitely went on. It kind of drug out a little bit too long, but I like the way that the guns were. Yeah, they made you feel sort of slightly less unsafe, but still you were still very scared the whole time.
I remember the first time I played the game, I'm like, cool, I found a gun, and I shot at the xenomorph, and I'm like, that didn't do anything.
No, yeah, yeah, for sure. That guy's really powerful. Yeah, you're always meant to be afraid of that thing. And even it barely does anything to the android guys too.
Oh yeah, the working Joes.
Uh-huh.
Those things creep me out worse than the xenomorph ever does.
Yeah, they were a good like kind of extra spook on top of yeah, also an alien. Just so uncanny.
For me,
I was
it's
always wondering. I always thought that Steam Powered Giraffe should evolve their robots, kind of like evolve them into dolls or something. Maybe even sort of like semi-human, just because of all the makeup we had to put on. It would have been less intrusive to have to do all the metal stuff that we did, which took hours, and do something like, I don't know, I guess maybe not like a working Joe, because that would have been pretty uncanny, but like more doll-like or something.
Well, I've been wondering about that because I've been having a hard time finding lore because I like to look at the backstories of things.
Yeah.
Are the robots for Steam Powered Giraffe, were they human once and then became robots, or were they purpose built?
As far as I know, they've always been robots. Oh, as far as
Okay.
I know, I don't think there's any characters that turned into robots. And then initially, the origin story is that they were built for war, and then the creator saw the error in their ways and decided to turn them into kind of entertainment.
Because specifically the character of the spine always struck me as like that could possibly be like a human's head attached to a robot body.
Yeah, I mean that's more of the meta narrative of the Bennetts creating the robots. They're almost they're almost part robotic after a certain point. When they put on the makeup and yeah, they were definitely built to be just robots, though. I don't think, unless there's something else that came out. I don't know. I don't think there's anything
So some new
human about
development.
them. Yeah, there might be something. I don't know. I think Bunny has been working on the comic again. I definitely, I think she should definitely keep on plugging that comic out, because I worked on it a little bit with her, and it was super fun. And just wasn't really our main priority at the time. We were very interested in playing, obviously pre-COVID, playing shows as much as possible, and releasing albums and stuff.
Well, so I've been meaning to ask you, how long did it take to put on the makeup?
To begin with, for me, it took about 2 hours, but by the end of my stint with Steam Powered Giraffe, I could get it down to 45 to even a half hour if I was really wanted to be lazy. Yeah, I had it down pretty quick towards the end, I feel.
See, because when watching the music videos, that's the main thought that hits me is like that must have been a headache.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not comfortable, but we would for music videos, definitely probably the most antithetical, because we'd put it on for a half day of work. But for cons, it was great because we'd be working like up to 12 hours a day, and you just make the most of the makeup, playing the show and then doing photos and just walking around with the makeup and in character and stuff.
How do you not sweat that off though?
It's the type of makeup it was. I don't remember. It's got a sealant on it, and it would basically it wouldn't sweat off. I don't remember. I don't remember all the details or what the names of stuff was called, but it's a pigment, and then you mix it with like an alcohol solution, and it would just stay on. Yeah, you could. You would sweat, but it wouldn't. The metal stuff and the pigment stuff wouldn't come off. It's just like, there's the lipsticks that can last 24 hours, that they have out there. Similar type of thing. And then it wasn't too much, just a little kind of gentle soap and warm water would get it off pretty easy. So it was pretty cool stuff, but you definitely felt it on your face.
Oh, like did it keep the heat in?
No, nothing like that. I mean, I guess when we did outside stuff, like especially in Wild West Con, we were in the sun, and it felt like kind of tinfoil on your face, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It really wasn't. It was just kind of like, I don't even know, the idea of doing the makeup before. I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't actually that bad. It wasn't actually that bad. What really sucks is thinking about it. And especially now, I've been out of the band since 2016, and I still have fucking dreams where I'm like, uh-oh, I've got 10 minutes to put on makeup. I'm late. I'm going to be late. My makeup's going to be unfinished. It's like, come on. I was never even late to do that. I was always scared of being unfinished during it. So there's.
I feel like that's the performance equivalent of like going to school in your underwear type of nightmare.
Oh my god, exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
see,
And then just showing up on stage with half finished makeup is basically the same feeling. It's like, well, I can still sing, motherfucker. I can still play bass. I can still play guitar. But I just look like shit.
see, that's why I stick to a mask so I could just slip it on and off.
hmm I mean, I've always been kind of trying to. I'm always kind of trying to problem solve creative stuff, and I thought about all that stuff. Like I'm sure they did too. Actually, I thought about doing masks and minimizing the makeup and all this other stuff, but it's just kind of like we couldn't. We were just like stuck with the same old thing.
Well, that and I've seen, well, in terms of like how I word it. What percentage of like your head gets covered? Because I know you wore a hat when you did Hatchworth.
Yeah, with the makeup we did, besides the top of the head, whatever the hat covered, basically the whole head, ears, back of the neck, tried to get. I even the back of my back of my head has hair. I'd paint that brighter orange.
Hmm.
The neck, so everything kind of down to like the clavicle. I tried to get, and even maybe a little bit past. You never knew. So pretty much full coverage on the head, lips, nostrils, even tried to get in there.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, nostrils. Oh no.
not sticking paintbrushes up the nostril, but just kind of just around enough to not see any kind of flesh through it. Especially me, because I had the really dark metal, and I'm
Mm.
really, really white. So any skin you could probably see through would like probably glow.
And so a question hit me, and I'm very curious. Do you perchance have the fancy shoes?
No, we gave those away. I had a couple pairs, and each pair I inevitably ended up giving away at some point because I always wanted to kind of remake them, and I remade them 3 times. And yeah, I eventually gave them away.
Oh
I don't
darn.
know where they are.
Well, so did you write fancy shoes, or how does that work?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting one. I wrote it back when me and the Bennetts were first experimenting with like making music way before Steam Powered Giraffe. I made a little song on my 8-track recorder called basically kind of like all my stuff was like gibberish. I would just kind of riff out stuff and mumble along and try to sing little hooks and stuff. And I made a little 8 tracks song called Fancy Shoes that was not really finished. And apparently Bunny remembered it and wanted to take a crack at remaking it. And I didn't want Bunny to remake the song. So I was like, no, I'll make the dang song. And so I remade the song for Steam Powered Giraffe. And we ended up doing that a lot, actually. All these old songs that we had. And I did that too. I took old songs that I had, futzed around writing back in high school. I kind of retooled to be Steam Powered Giraffe songs. And yeah, Fancy is just one of them.
I say, would the other happen to be only human? Because I also heard your cover of it on your channel as well.
Yes. Yeah, Only Human. No, actually, no. Only Human is. Oh, I just redid that for Sam, so I'm not completely sick of it. I don't necessarily click with the Steam Powered Giraffe aesthetic, musically speaking. So I'm more of a rock guy, and so I tried to retool it to be fun to play solo. But yeah, Only Human I wrote for Steam Powered Giraffe. That was on Quintessential, one of my last album, and I wrote it for the band. I wrote it specifically for Steam Powered Giraffe.
Well, I
But
listened. Well, I
oh, go
listened to
ahead.
both versions back to back, and it seems like while maintaining the same lyrics, they take on a very different tone.
Yeah, I all of my stuff I wrote for Steam Powered Giraffe, besides Hatch Fever and Go Spine Go, are meant to be songs. I just it's just for my own self. I don't really they're not specific for Steam Powered Giraffe. They're just kind of, they can be taken out of context. I don't like kind of keeping something under one roof, It's kind of, yeah, yes. Meant to be, it's not meant to be restricted to just Steam Powered Giraffe. Except for, like I said, Hatch Fever and Go Spine Go.
I say what you got to do now is, as new fans roll in, you got to cover Go Spine Go, and there you go. Then when people ask inevitably, "Who's the spine?" You're like, I don't
know. Everyone's got a spine.
You have one. I've got one.
Yeah, it's just a song about back problems. A back spy.
Or it reminds me of that. That quote by Stephen King? Despite popular opinion, I do in fact have the heart of a small child in a jar on my desk.
That's great. I don't doubt that, actually, now that I think about it.
I mean, if anybody's got to have one, it's him.
Yeah.
But with that, Sam, so we are closing in on the hour. It's been 52 minutes or so. How are you feeling?
Good, yeah. Yeah, we can, polish it off, the old conversation.
Sure thing.
Yeah. I don't mind taking another question, or if you got anything, or we could just, whatever you want to do.
So I do have a closing question that I ask every guest for every episode. And that is, if asked, would you be open to coming back as a return guest?
Yeah. Gee Willikers, and get to talk about myself? Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, it was very pleasant. Thank you, Fresman. I liked, seems like we have some stuff in common, and yeah, chill atmosphere. Nothing too prying. I was kind of like anticipating, like, okay, let's get into the woods here. Got some questions you're gonna ask that are gonna be challenging to me, but nothing so far. So maybe bring some of those next time. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what? That's perfect, because I did plan in the future to just ask every question I don't normally ask.
Sure.
But just like way too in depth. Like, welcome. Where do you live? What do you do?
Yeah, maybe not that one. Maybe not that one.
I'm
very close to being homeless. No, not really.
You can find me under the 405 bridge.
At your house is what I'm is what I would retort with. Do you have a spare bedroom?
Do you have a couch with at least 3 cushions?
Yes, please.
But this has been fantastic. I've had an absolute blast talking to you.
Samesies. Thank you.
And Sam, is there a song and or video that you are a part of that you are particularly proud of that you'd like to see in the description of this here video?
Sure. I have one. I just kind of released a little tiny song called Wake Up and Eat. And it's a tiny little song I have on, I think that's what it's called. I'm not even sure, actually. On my YouTube. It's the most recent thing I did. And it was just kind of like a song celebrating Cyber Monday or Black Friday. The purchasing day after Thanksgiving or what have you.
Oh yeah, the
Stampede. Oh, it's called Eat, Buy, Repeat. That's what it's called. It's on my YouTube, and it should be a nice indicator of how my mind works sometimes.
But thank you, Sam, for coming on. This has been great, and I'm not geeking out, I promise.
That's cool. Yeah.
But thank you, Sam, and thank you, wonderful party people at home, for sticking around. Please go check out Sam's stuff. There will be all of the links in the description. But with that, this has been Demasked. My name is Fresman, and I will see all of you next time.